Hey guys, well it's Monday morning. I'm going to try and take these forks then and get this wood moved around. Right now I have a log on there that I got to measure up and figure out how I want to cut it. Looks like I'll probably be cutting the small end off of that and maybe a part of the big end there. This log has a couple of twists in it. If you look down there just for the first glance, you see there's a bow in here a little bit, and then there's one down here going the other way. So we want to try and get the biggest part of the wood out of this thing. That other end has a pretty big split in it. So it starts to get really big from about here down. So I'm going to measure from here 8'3". Now I'm only doing this because I want 8'3" in my kiln, and I need probably the rest of the logs I have there to fill the kiln up. So I'm going to be cutting this at this end and then cutting it up by where the tape measure is there at the end. So that'll give me a fairly nice straight log. It's not too bad to be able to cut into boards. So I'll cut that off and then I'll get back to you. I won't make you watch my chainsaw cut. I put some WD-40 on there and ran the blade. You can see how nice and clean it is there. So I like to do that at the start of the cutting for a day, and then sometime between the day or within the day I'll do the same thing. Now you can see there how it's narrow at one end there and widens out at the other. That's because of the bend in the log. Just want to check and see how straight it's cutting. Very good. because I flipped this over, what's going to happen here is you're going to see a wider cut here and a wider cut at the bottom, or at the other end. But it's going to be a narrower cut through the middle. We have to just hope it's 6 inches. Now, because we're going to get a 6-inch cant out of here, we can measure from the bottom up. We see we got 8 inches there. So when I take that off, I'm not going to have a 6-inch board in the middle, but we can cut down a little further until we get to that clear 6 inches. So you see at both ends, we got wood there, but in the middle we're still looking at bark. So we need to go down a little more. The best thing to do to get the full 6 boards out of here is to not go past 7 inches from the bump up. So that's what we'll do. That's 6 inches there, so we're lucky that the bend wasn't any worse than it was. I'm not sure if we're going to get 6 the other way. I hope we do. Start at that end naturally, and I'm going to cut just right at the wood line where the wood meets the wing, so I can try and get the biggest piece out of this that I can possibly get. One of the things, this is a good picture here, so I'll show it to you. If you look where the center of the tree is, it's right here. Okay, so it's not where you would think it would be. I mean, I cut this pretty much even. Probably a little bit more from this side, but the center of the tree is not always in the center of the tree. It's offset sometimes, it depends on how the tree grew. So, you know, for people to say always go to the center of the tree, it's not always the center. So you have to look at it as you're cutting it. there in the top has a little bit of wane on both sides. I believe I cut that at 8 inches off the rail, but I got to see what the other side, what the bottom there is going to look like. So because I have it pretty square there, and the wane would only be probably in the first board, I'm not going to cut anymore on this side. I'm going to roll it over and cut it. It looks like there's no knots in this, so actually that's pretty nice. Okay, we're looking pretty good there. I'll show you the grain. It's actually very nice. You'll see there's a little bit of wane up there. I'm into the sapwood here, but it doesn't look bad, so I'll just leave that on there. I'll be out of that in the first cut. So right now I've got 6.5 inches from the bunk to the top of the cant. I would have liked to have had more than that. That means I can only take a 1/2 inch off the bottom. Yeah, I got 7 inches this way. So if I take a 1/2 inch off the bottom and make it 6 inches this direction, I can turn this and probably get a good 6 boards out of that. So we'll try that. So what I'm after is to get that wane out of there. Alright, yeah, the wane off of this. Which you can see it's right there. This is a 7-inch way, okay? This is 6.5. So I can cut a 1/2 inch off of that, which I'm going to do, and then I have to turn it so I have the 7-inch facing up and down, and that'll give me enough space with the cut, with the kerf of the saw blade to get down there 6 boards. That'll make cutting this worthwhile. to say here also is I had gotten a comment the other day about someone who did a lot of cutting at one time, and they were telling me that I should show you what happens. You know, if you're cutting down into this and you're starting to get a bunch of knots, you want to get away from that, because red oak, when it dries, the knots pretty much stay the same size and the board starts to warp. Now sometimes you can fight that if the knots aren't too big, otherwise you're just fighting a losing battle. However, this looks like it's going to be good, so I'm going to just cut this all the way through once I turn it. But what you would do then is, instead of cutting 1-inch boards out here, which is what I'm after 1-inch boards. That's why I cut so many of them. Instead of cutting 1-inch boards, you'd look at what you got left once you get to the knots, and then cut yourself a bigger piece of wood out of there, maybe a 2-inch board, or something like a 4x4, 6x6. Of course, this is a 6x6 here. It's just not a good log to show you that on, because it's actually kind of small. But just telling you about it. So what I'm saying is, if you start cutting down and you're getting a bunch of knots, you may want to just cut off the opposite edges, get that one good board off, and then get yourself maybe a 4x4 out of this or something. But we're going to try cutting it up. Get quite down to the bottom of the wing. There's very little bit on each side here yet, but it's the best we can do with this, so it is what it is. Alright, so I'm going to turn this. That still looks good down there. Just so you know, this is also one of the reasons why you should take the board off every time you cut, especially if you don't have a lot of wood, because you can see what you got as you're going. Not that you cut all the boards with all of them laying on top, and you end up not knowing what you have. When you take them apart, all you got is knots down there. So you can see I'm going to be into the center of the pith there soon, but it looks like the pith will be on one side of the board and then on another side of another board, and then I'll be back into good wood. Now there are some knots showing up here because of the early growth of the tree, but they're small. They're pretty much going to stay the way they are, and they're right in the center, so I'm not going to have to worry much about how it's going to dry. I'm not saying it's going to dry perfectly, but it'll be a lot better than, you know, some of them that have big knots off to one side. So this side of this board is looking pretty good. The other side here is a little bit rougher. The knots are a little bit bigger and they're scattered around a little, but I still think that this will be a good one-bite. Let's just brush this off and take a look at it. Yeah, see, we're pretty much through the pith there. Now there's a little bit of pith showing up here, but the next cut will get me beyond it. So the bottom of this board should be a good looking face. It's not bad, but it's not what I was hoping for. And the reason for that is just the one knot there, and I'll show it to you. These small knots here that you see are not an issue, but this one, this is an issue. What will happen is this board won't shrink right around that knot. So it's going to bend one way or the other, but it's almost an 8-footer. I mean, the board is 8 foot, and we'll just have to see how it looks once it's been dried. Sometimes they turn out okay, but it's a guess. Sometimes they just won't. This is a good side of this board though, actually. The nice thing that's happened is you can see I got 2 more boards left here. Even though that can, or the log, had a little bit of a bend in it. Yeah, this side here looks a lot nicer. Even though that log had a little bit of a bend in it, this is laying pretty flat here now. It doesn't seem to want to warp. So that's 5 boards. We'll get another one out of this. The bottom we know is good, so we'll just cut an inch off of it. board after 3 years and no adjustments of the cutting surfaces. You can't beat that. Very nice. So the face I have showing up there now, facing up, gives you a really good idea of how nice this red oak board can be. This is a mark here from the dog. We'll lose that when I plane it. Now there is a little bit of wane on this because remember that was that first cut. I wasn't able to get all the wane out of it. Alright, so like I say, got 6 nice pieces there. So you can't get any better than that out of a small log like that. A lot of times logs that are bent can really mess you up because sometimes you don't know which way to go on them as far as how much to take off. And you just got to work slowly at it. I mean, you saw me take a ½ inch off at one point, and then I ended up with that, that wasn't even an eighth of an inch at the end there just to try to get this last cord cut out of it. Take your time, practice, and watch what you're doing. Try and explain to yourself what you've just done and what you got. I mean, if you just cut boards, I know when you start getting a new sawmill and you start to cut, wow, I'm getting these nice flat boards, but in reality, the boards are probably not as nice as what you would like until you start learning about the wood. Once you understand the wood, the bends, and what the wood log may do, then you really have an advantage on this. Alright guys, I'm going to be cleaning up here. It's early today. Probably get to another log a little bit later, but I got some other things that I've got to go do. Have a good one. Bye.